Hey guys, this is Flavored and I'm presenting you the first, well technically it's the second of course, but I'm calling it the first episode of Star Wars The Old Republic's Guide to PvP, where I'm trying to relate certain advice to provide support to the aspiring and already seasoned PvPers on how to perform better in their matches, perhaps give you some food for thought on how to improve your gameplay, and obviously improve the fun you're getting out of the game's PvP. Now, in the previous episode I discussed the ways on how you can get an upper hand, how to progress with your character and make it deliver better results in actual combat and actual PvP, the ways you can improve your stats, the ways you can do to gain an upper hand on your opponents even before the match has already begun. If you haven't really watched the episode, I should tell you that I will be remaking it, because after watching it countless times, I'm gonna hide the number of times I reviewed the episode I made myself, because it's just terrifying, really, the number of times I watched it. But I will be remaking that episode. The reason being, I came to a conclusion that the way I put the information in there was kind of chaotic, and perhaps at times it was hard to understand what I really meant. Thus, I want to make it easier for anyone, both the guys who know stuff and the guys who don't know stuff yet about the game, to understand what I'm talking about. And I'll get around to it, I suppose, shortly after I release this one. And in this episode, first episode, which is actually the second one, I will be getting into the topic of controlling, of controls, keybinds, the way you move your character about in the game. It is all very important to PvP. If your controls do not fit your style, if you are still clicking on those skills with your mouse, you're probably inferior to your opponent in the game. And obviously, if you're inferior in this field, plain simply, you're just gonna die to your opponent and will be considered weaker than them. So, I hope I do not need to tell you how important it is to have your controls tailored to be fast and precise. Now, for the purposes of this episode, let me get into the game. I've made this new little bounty hunter. Look at him, ain't he cute? And there we go. I'm only about to start. Let's look at the default controls. It's all the same. Look around with the mouse. I can rotate the camera holding the left mouse button. I can turn my character around holding the right mouse button. It's the standard default interface. The movement keys are WASD on my keyboard, A and D rotated, which is really not so comfortable. As you can see, rotation is very slow. W and S moving forward and backwards. Let me go into preferences, into key bindings and movement tab. So this is what we got. Unfortunately, the default setup is completely unfit for PvP. Just believe me in this. This is not how you should have your control setup. So before I going to give an actual advice on how, let me first load my interface, which I use across all my characters. I'll go into details on the interface in my next video. For now, it's only controls. Let me quickly set up things around here. Does it recharge and reload? Yep, like this. And hit. Missile blast. Okay. This is about it. Now, one thing to mention, that your right mouse button is bound to the first skill on the quick bar 1. Whatever skill is in the first slot of the first quick bar is bound to the right mouse button. But what I suggest you do is never use mouse button for skills at all. Well, this is like it. Never use it. You will need to use it to navigate around the field and rotate your character. But I suppose first things first, and I have to sort out movement. Now, probably most of you play first-person shooters and stuff like that, and use these default keys to use default WASD to move, so that's what I'm gonna do. First of all, let's go into movement and rebind those. We do not want to be rotating our character, so instead we want to use A and D for strafing. Strafe left and strafe right. Okay, now let's check it out. Instead, character now moves sideways. Now let's try this with the mouse together. Try this out for yourself and see how much more comfortable it is now navigating around the field like this. You can rotate your character with the mouse. You can move sideways without rotating on your keyboard. You can easily go behind obstacles while strafing. You can change your directions without any, well, with more ease, so to speak. It allows you a lot more easier navigation around the field. Let me go outside my first quest area and proceed to Cantina. And that's about it. This really covers the basics of movement, with the exception perhaps of operative or smuggler class, who use an additional mechanic. It's the only class in the game which uses additional mechanic of going into cover, which is an additional can be used as an additional movement tool. I will cover it a little bit later in this video, but that's about it. That's all you need to know of the movement in this game. You need to have strafing instead of rotation, and do everything else with the mouse by holding the right mouse button. Now you might ask, if I do not use the right mouse button, what buttons should I use? Well, that's a very valid question. Let me first zoom out on my minimap for the easier navigation and proceed outside to showcase how do we use our basic skills, basic attack and other skills. I would bind them to buttons eventually. Let me use a taxi point. Okay, the first enemies on Hata, they're about to die. Let me buff myself. Now, I suppose, how should I actually do this, I wonder? Should I talk about targeting first, now that I've covered movement really? Or should I go into keybinds first? Well, I suppose the logical thing right now would be to actually bind the keys first. Therefore, let's go into the quick bar tab of the key bindings. Right immediately we have this main quick bar, and we don't really have a lot of skills now that we're only level 1. But let's see what we have. Main quick bar slot. I put in missile blast. That way, if I accidentally click somewhere, I won't be using my rapid shots, but perhaps I'll be using missile blast. Let me show you how it works until I bind it. I click the right mouse button. He uses this skill. That's what I was talking about a little while ago. Okay. I've dispatched the first group of evil mobs who were picking on me Wish I could do this in real life without so much complications. Too bad I have no ways of getting missiles. Anyway, putting all the jokes aside, now I can finally bind my skills. What I suggest you do is start utilizing side buttons on your mouse if you do not yet do this straight away. So I'm going to bind this to the mouse button 4 on my mouse, and standard rapid shots, which I moved in to the quick bar 2 to my mouse 5. Now what you should think about is that every skill that you find yourself frequently using, including stuff like recharge and reload, your recuperate ability, and your class buff. I talked about how important they are in the previous video, in the video 0. All of that should be bound. Of course, you don't need to bind sprint and quick travel, because obviously you will not be using them frequently enough for that to be important to be bound in PvP or PvE. It doesn't really matter. But of course, if you feel that it will be more convenient to you, feel free to do it. Like, nothing I say in this video is set in stone. It's just a general advice I give based on my personal experience on how to make yourself perform better. Now let me bind the 2 remaining skills that I will be frequently using, and talk about why I do that. This will be a combination of buttons: Alt, Control, mouse button 5, and the remaining one, quick bar 4, will be Alt W. Now let's talk about why I did this and why the combinations of buttons. Now, not everyone is blessed with special keyboards and special mice with a lot of additional buttons. Obviously, if you have ones and you feel they are easy for you to access, you should utilize those. Well, no, not the mice and keyboards, but the buttons on them. But what's important in PvP especially is ease of access and how quick you can press certain combos. Obviously, with your left hand, always lying on WASD, which it should be, like your middle finger. Sorry guys, that's not what I meant. Your middle finger always been positioned on W, and your index and nameless finger been positioned on A and D. The remaining keybinds should be easily accessible. Now your thumb or big finger would probably in this case be positioned on the Alt, and the rest of your palm would be able to easily access Control, and your pinky would be somewhere near Shift. That's why these 3 buttons would be perfect for using in combos of all skills. And this game, each character and class has a considerable number of skills that should be used. Thus, there would be a lot of keybinds, seriously. Some classes have more, other classes have less, but in general there are a lot of keybinds. So let's see, my palm and my fingers are positioned on AWD. Now I can easily press Alt, Control, mouse button 4 on my mouse, and there we go. I can easily buff my team once I actually have one. Obviously right now I can only buff myself. And as soon as I get out of combat, let me use this standard targeting and go attack these guys. And as soon as I get out of combat, please could you guys die faster? I can use LW to quickly recuperate without looking for it with my mouse. Now let's try this yourself and see how easier it is to have everything bound in a way that is easily accessible for yourself. There I am, engaging, quickly targeting, removing, quickly targeting, removing the guy, and I can easily recuperate and rebuff, use vent heat if I want to, but I don't have any heat, so I don't need to use it. And that's how you should do with every skill you use frequently. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have every skill that you find yourself using in a war zone, including consumables perhaps like med packs and adrenals, your class buffs, recuperate ability, to have it bound. Sometimes you will have only a fraction of a second to use them, and you should not find yourself in a situation where you go around your screen with the mouse desperately looking for a skill to use. Now I realize that not everyone is able to control their hands easily, and so if you absolutely have to well, actually, this is something that would better be covered in the interface, but it directly is related to controls. Where is enable? There we go. This is directly related to controls, thus I suppose I have to talk about it right now in this episode. Now, if you find yourself that you absolutely have to use... Wait, who's attacking me? I'm not ready to die just yet. Let me kill them. That if you absolutely have to use mouse to click on certain skills, do this. Wait, what's this lag? Apologies, I lagged a little bit. Go into your interface editor and position one of these quick bars in the middle of your screen, somewhere where it's easily accessible. Well, a little bit below the center of it, because the center of the screen is where most of the action happens, and it's preferable that it's unobstructed. Position it somewhere below. Unfortunately, it conflicts. In this case, it conflicts a little bit with my interface, but so if you absolutely have to click, just do this. But you can see most of the time your mouse will be in the center area, simply because this is your character R, and your targets will be in this area as well. You will notice how easier it is to move your mouse to a quick bar positioned like that. If you have some important skills that you can, or if you've run out of buttons to bind your skills to, you can use this simple trick to make skills more easily accessible. Of course, it is still a little bit worse than actually having them bound to a button. And you will be slower than an opponent who has them bound. But if there is no other option, it's a lot better than scrolling all the way down, or there is an interface which has skill bars positioned to left and right of your screen. Especially if you have a big screen, it might get complicated, but it's a lot more easier than scrolling somewhere far away from the center and clicking. Once again, let me showcase it. It's in the middle, done this way. You can use, well, obviously you can use any skill like that, but perhaps it's more effective in terms of the skills you use less often than the others. Of course, something like missile blast you can use pretty often, but if you have like AoE attacks with long cooldowns, perhaps defensive bubbles, you can put them into a quick bar like that and use them from here. Alright, this about covers the binds. Unfortunately, I do not yet have a lot of skills to showcase, but naturally, if you want to bind your skills, you would have to do it with the buttons that you can easily access with your left hand. So in case of the standard WASD, this would be Q, E, R, F, C, X, Z, and any combo which involves Shift and Alt, because Shift and Alt are the easiest combo buttons to access in this setup. You can combine them with all these buttons, as well your mouse buttons, additional mouse buttons. Unfortunately, you cannot bind anything to left mouse button or right mouse button. They are preset. But otherwise, any combo is fine. Just make sure that you can easily reach them, reach the buttons you bind the skills to, and which are important to you. Otherwise, you will be straining yourself, and it will not be effective. Your hands will get tired pretty quickly, and well, as you understand, your performance in this case will fall greatly. Well, as I find my trainer, I will show a little bit more binds, but let me move on to the next topic. Right now, it's of course targeting. Like, three things are the most important in case of controls: it's movement, it's keybinds, and it's targeting. Let me remove this. Quick bar from my screen and go into the targeting. Now, by default, all the targeting keybinds are pretty much ineffective. You will need several targeting mechanics if you want to stay fast and sharp in a Warzones or in PvP in general. And by default, they are not so good. First of all, the only thing you have in this game is tab targeting. Unfortunately, it's a little bit of an old model, but well, we have to use what we get and use it to the fullest efficiency. Let's check with the binds. Let's go into targeting and see what we have. Let's keep cover for now. It's important only to the single class in the game, which is smuggler or an operative. Everyone else are safe to ignore this. Okay, the main tool, target next enemy, is bound to the tab button. It allows us obviously to scroll through the enemies which are around us. Now, how should I do this? My recommendation first is to go into I forgot, where is it? Right. Go into controls and scroll down to combat section. Now, there are two things that are turned off by default, and you would probably better to turn them on, because otherwise it might get really complicated to target in the war zones. First, it's cycle target in screen space. Now, if I turn it off, let's see. Do I have any more? No, unfortunately I do not. Let's see. Wait, I'm unfortunately a little bit too far away. Damn it. Well, I guess I will have to explain it just like that, with the words. If I turn that option off, and it's by default it's not on, when there is a lot of enemies around you, and especially those that are behind you but outside this area of your screen, like for example here, by scrolling through the targets, it can select the targets that you actually cannot see. Obviously, that is not a great thing in a war zone when you're trying to target a guy that are right in front of you, and instead the next target, you press tab, the next target it selects is somewhere outside of your area of vision. That is not good. Hopefully you realize why. It slows down your targeting a lot. Thus I recommend turning it on. Show next target in cycle is another important option. because well, you probably want, if you use top targeting, you probably want to see which is the next target that will be selected when you press. As you can see, there is little R arrow under a target I'm facing, and when I press tab, this guy will get selected. It's as easy as that. It really makes targeting, top targeting, easier. Now you might say that why the hell not select targets with a mouse? Well, if you ever played Warzones, you might have noticed that hitting moving target with a mouse is a goddamn hard thing to do. Like seriously, hitboxes of the targets, click boxes of the targets, are so damn small actually, even though it doesn't seem like that. But look at that. The target is distance away from me, and it's like this short of a distance to click him. In Warzones, where targets are moving all the damn directions, it might be really impossible to click on a target with a mouse. That's the only reliable way of actually selecting someone, is with the keybinds. Now that's exactly what I'm getting into. Let me get back into the key bindings and targeting. Probably, at least by default, for Warzones and PvP, you want to use four targeting selectors. It's target next enemy, target next friend, target nearest enemy, and target nearest friend. That's hell of important to use them for quick navigation between targets, and they should be bound like any skill. In this case, I'm gonna bind them to Z and X for them to be easily accessible to me. And I will leave target next enemy and target next friend to their default key binds. Let's see how this works. Now, target closest in conjunction with target only in screen space does the following. Whenever you press the button, it selects the closest target in your direct line of sight. This is extremely important. So whenever you're fighting for a point or something and the enemy is about to go down, you just turn to the next enemy and press target closest. Unfortunately, the targeting in this game is a pain in the ass, seriously. You have to utilize quite often your scroll to position the camera at a certain distances to actually be able to select someone. The ways Warzones are built, and there are a lot of neutral obstructions that may get in front of the camera, and when there is an obstruction in front of the camera, targeting is done from the point of the camera, not the point of your character, unfortunately. So if there is an obstruction like this tree, well, in this case actually it gets behind me, but in a Warzone there are certain obstructions that get in front of the camera, and when there is an obstruction in front of the camera, you cannot select anyone. Like, let me get behind the tree. As you can see, my line of sight is obstructed and I cannot select anyone behind the tree. I cannot select the guy behind this tree. And when there is some brick or whatever part of the void star in front of the camera, you will not be able to select anyone, even if they're damn 1 meter, inch, whatever your measurement system is. Even if they're looking straight into your eyes, you will not be able to select them. Thus, unfortunately, since it is this flawed, you'll have to use additionally your scroll. What I'm talking about is you should start getting, if you're not used to it already, you should start getting used to these things right away. If you're not yet into end game, because then it might be a little bit hard. Otherwise, you will always be on the back foot compared to someone who uses these tricks. It's just that easy. If you're trying to rotate with your keyboard, well, you will just be slow. In war zones, you might have only split seconds to interrupt, to break a cap, or to run behind an obstacle to hide from imminent death. That's how it is. So back to targeting. As I've explained, binding target close nearest enemy is important. You face them, you press the button, there it's selected, you're ready to start annihilating them with the keybinds you've so carefully bound to the buttons. Okay, let me try and make my way to my first trainer to get the few additional skills which I might bind to different buttons to showcase that. Now, target nearest friend, as you can see, works the same way. If you're a healer or if you're a tank and need to drop a guard, in addition to navigating through the ops frame, you will have somewhere in your interface that I will go into in the next video. You sometimes just need to quickly select. Well, these are unselectable objects, so this guy gets selected. Now the range of selection is the standard. Well, actually, how far can I select this guy from? 15 meters. Never thought about it. Oh, the range of selection is 50 meters away. Yeah, so it's pretty long. You can select targets 50 meters away from you, both friendly and hostile, as long as you can see them and your view is unobstructed in any way. Target nearest friend is important to healers and well, anyone who can cast some friendly buffs or debuffs. Sometimes you can select them. Unfortunately, the range of this. Oh yeah, it's companion. What am I doing? The range of this is 30 meters, so you can select them to give them buffs if they need it. You can select someone who's dying in your direct line of sight to heal them. Unfortunately, my bounty hunter doesn't have any healing effects yet. When I turn him into merc he will. And that's about it about targeting nearest friends and hostiles. These two are very important tools you should use for targeting in any war zone. After targeting, if for some reason the target is not in your line of sight but it can still be selected, you should obviously utilize tab targeting or whatever button you decide to change it to. As well as cycling through the nearest friends and enemies. If you're not satisfied, like myself, with the tab and control tab, you should change it to another button perhaps. Same as closest, like only a combo. If you set it to the buttons X and Z, like I did, perhaps you should change it to a combo like Alt Z or Alt X to have them more easily accessible. But you should remember that it's important to utilize the combination of target closest and target next target. These are like the basics of targeting in war zones and PvP. Well, it's like basics of targeting in game. Quite often you might find this useful in PvE as well, although PvE is much less intense in terms of switching targets. Thus, even the mouse clicking is fine. Now, the next thing, and it is more of a there are a lot of options you can a lot of keybinds and tools you can use for targeting, but well, It is really up to you what tools you can use. Most of the things I've talked about can be achieved through the combination of target closest and target next. There are, of course, additional options like F1, select yourself. This is always useful when you need to buff yourself or heal yourself. On the other hand, when the skill, like healing skill, cannot be cast on enemy, obviously it will always be cast on yourself. Whenever you have no targets, you will always cast heals on yourself. Thus, targeting yourself may not always be as useful as it seems. It is really up to your preference, but of course you may leave this the standard keybind unless you intend to use it for something else. It is always it is not a bad idea in general to have this bound to an accessible button. Damn, I should really split it into several chapters or something. This is a lot of information, but hopefully you are guys following. Remember, never use turn in on a keyboard, have your skills bound, and have your targeting tools accessible. Now on to the more advanced things, I guess. There are a few additional tools in targeting which you could use. First of all, it's set focus target. Now when you need to it directly ties into interface again. I will go more into this in the next episode, but I prefer to leave these at their standard keybinds. But of course, if you will find that they get in the way for some reason, you should change them. And of course, if you intend to use them, otherwise, well, don't do it. But they're very useful in war zones for focus targeting and stuff. Let me press Alt F, and I have a focus target now. I can follow his HP, his energy, or mana, or whatever. Now, this is used mostly in war zones to acquire a target's target. So you set a focus target, and then you press. Is he targeting anyone? Doesn't look like it. I guess I would be better off selecting a companion. Do we have anyone with a companion? Yes. There we go. I have a companion, which is the goddamn button. Wait, I forgot which is the default acquired target's target button. It's Control F, okay. So, I've got to focus on target, I press Ctrl F, and I've got his target acquired right here. So, how this used in war zones? You select some DPS whom you're sure is targeting important enemies, and whenever you need to focus someone down, you just press Ctrl F and you are immediately focused on their target, even if they're out of your line of sight. So you can switch and attack them. That's more of an advanced trick, and you should really practice it. Otherwise, this can be used to keep track of party members that are far away and defending. You can focus target them and then immediately notice if their HP start dropping, or if they start using their energy, so means they're in combat. There are several uses to this, but like I said, this is a little bit of an advanced trick and it requires a little bit of practice. But it is a good idea to have set focus target, swap focus target thing, and acquire focus target's target bound. Another more or less advanced trick is this one, acquire target's target. Works exactly the same way, only you need to have someone selected for that. Like you don't need to have acquired focus target selected to use acquisition of his targets. God damn it! I use the word target so much. I need to cut it down, I suppose. But anyway, in case of acquired target, you need to select someone. To have anyone with a companion anywhere nearby. Do we? Wait, no, but this guy is attacking someone. Press Control. Or is it Alt-T? Yeah, press Alt-T and you can immediately switch to whoever is selected by that guy. To either focus or instead heal. For example, if you see some crazy marauder engaging on your healer and you're engaging on that marauder yourself, as for example a Juggernaut or Guardian tank, you can quickly press Alt-T, switch to your healer, intercede to him. That improves your performance by quite a lot. But if you feel, I personally find it easier to just select nearest enemy, nearest friend, or nearest enemy, or instead navigate with my ops frame. But that's another tool you can consider using if that is more to your liking. There are additional targeting stuff you can use, but personally I prefer not to touch it to avoid clogging up my keybinds, because seriously I'm very limited and I use almost all the buttons I can easily access. Perhaps for focus targeting there is another interesting thing you can do, is to bind target markers to a button, and to coordinate your team you can just agree on some marker that will not be used, and that way you can, well, let me bind it to G just for showcasing purposes. For example, if you need someone or your team to target some specific, didn't I bind it? I can bind it, or what? Perhaps it's because, oh, yeah, it's because I do not really have a team. But when you have a team, damn it, I really thought I could showcase it, but oh well. When you have a team and you have a target marker bound for quickly placing it on targets, perhaps you've even seen people marking targets with some blasters and lightsabers. Usually you would go like right-clicking on a selected target's portrait, choosing target marker, then choosing the marker you would use. But you can bind these to buttons for quick access, and of course visual selection of a target is always easy. It can be easier to notice. Unfortunately, not all of the markers are easy to notice in this game, but it's easy to use and easy to notice by your team, so if you have some arrangement or agreement, they can all swap on specific marker and target that person or that player. That's another interesting tool you could utilize in targeting. But all of these are more or less advanced tricks. Like I said, you should start practicing with the default set of tools. It's selecting nearest targets and selecting next targets. Once you master this, it should be easy to shift into other targeting tools. Now, I think I've covered everything I actually wanted. Now, if you are somehow... Oh yes, another interesting thing is target center screen enemy. If you are lost, Or actually, I guess I'm confused. This is not what it does. It just selects an enemy. Not sure how it works actually. I apologize for this. I thought it actually centers screen to the enemy, but instead it just selects someone closest to the center, I suppose. That's about all I wanted to target. I wanted to speak about in targeting. I wanted to target. It's so hard to relay so much information in the effective way. I apologize if something is confusing. Just make sure you submit your feedback if you do not understand something. If need be, I will rework it. And I was making my way to a trainer to actually try and get some more skills and bind them, showcase more binds and how to navigate them. Meanwhile, let me dispatch a couple of mobs right here. Make my way to a trainer. I've got a rocket punch, but I do not have 10 credits. Oh yeah, I'm not, of course, since I created it. Yeah, completely forgot to loot at least someone and get myself 10 credits. Anyway, let me swap characters, and while I'm doing this, let me sum up the things I've already covered. First of all, do not use the default movement. It is not meant for PvP whatsoever. Use strafe. Do not rotate your character with the keyboard. If you are not used to strafing, it's time to start learning. Otherwise, you will never become good in PvP. Unfortunately. Fortunately, I wish it wasn't the truth, but that's how it is. You have to use proper movement, proper targeting, proper keybinds. Next, bind every skill you frequently use in a Warzone to a button, but make sure that button is easily accessible with your hands. Use Alt, Shift, and Control if you can easily reach it for sequence binds. If you do not use your additional side mouse buttons or wherever else you have them on your mouse, I am using an absolutely plain standard cheap mouse with just 2 side buttons. If you do not yet use these buttons, start getting used to that. Start utilizing them. Start getting acquainted with how they work and how to make your right palm comfortable while using this, because otherwise you might find yourself at a disadvantage while fighting in a highly intense combat. Well, let me log in to my other character. I get carried away. And of course, use targeting tools. Unfortunately, selecting targets with a mouse in the field can be often problematic because targets can move quickly, and the area on your screen to select a target is very damn small in this game. I cannot. You would laugh at me if you knew how many times I missed to click on target and the target got away or died. Okay, let me hop back into the game. There we go. A little more keybinds. What did I actually want to showcase? Oh, I wanted to play a test Warzone. That's right. I wanted to play a test Warzone and show you how I do targeting and navigate through. But basically, if you are tired of listening to me by this point, you can stop, because that's about all I wanted to cover in this tutorial, if I can call it that. I covered movement, I covered targeting, I covered keybinds, Oh yeah, that is why I switched to my gunslinger. I almost forgot an additional mechanic which is listed under targeting is cover. The only classes which get it is smugglers and imperial agents. We have a cover fire, take cover, and take cover in place. Basically, I've never in my life used cover fire, and I am. If someone knows what it actually does, because I have a smuggler and an operative, and they never ever use this. Perhaps gunslingers use it at some point, but unfortunately my only gunslinger is only level 14. If someone knows what this does, make sure to tell me. Now, taking cover is additional movement mechanic. As you can see, when you select an enemy and you rotate your camera, you get possible cover positions in the direction your character is facing. Thus, if you press take cover, your character will roll to that spot. Now, if you do not have an enemy selected, you will not get these possible cover locations, so it will only be visible if you have an enemy targeted. Obviously, take cover in place will just make your character not roll anywhere and take cover in place. But you will only enter a state of increased defense only if you are actually hiding behind an obstacle. Like, for example, if I take cover in place behind some box, I will be covered against the enemies which are there farther away from me, in front of me, but of course I will not be covered against someone who's behind me. Now, this works a little bit different between agents who actually have to be behind some obstacle, agents and smugglers. I mean operatives and smugglers who actually have to be behind an obstacle to be in a state of cover, and gunslingers. See how I rolled there? And gunslingers who have their personal covers. Ouch, and I got obliterated, unfortunately, because I let myself get leapt. And that's about it about cover and using it. Of course, if you're playing a gunslinger and a smuggler, an operative, or a sniper, you need to have those skills bound as well, because it's imperative to playing these classes. Now, as you can see, this Warzone not going so well right from the start, but yeah, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to showcase anything like this, but just look at the way I move and look at the way I select targets with the buttons I previously explained. With the tools and buttons I previously bound them to. I strafe, I navigate with my mouse, I turn around with my mouse, I release right mouse buttons and keep movement buttons pressed to look around the battlefield. Whoops, sometimes this happens. I quickly select targets with either tab, which I use just right now, switch to the next target. Or Z. Nobody's coming this way, right? We can take this point. I use my left mouse button to look around the area and see where I can reposition myself. I can quickly select the closest target I'm facing, or the closest ally if I could heal him, but unfortunately I'm a gunslinger. Wait, what the hell? I can use another keybind to quickly use my stuns. Unfortunately, I forgot to buy the only defensive cooldown I could. Or actually, no, I do not have any defensive cooldowns at this level. I do not have any med packs yet, right? Damn it, that's unfortunate for me, as I'm gonna die. But that about shows how do you use tools of movement and other navigation effectively. Why is nobody west? It's getting capped, fortunately, by a single guy, no less. Oh well, but I didn't mean to go into this Warzone to win, even though, of course, it would be a good thing. Damn it, get lost. Some friggin' noob. And he goes, yeah. I do not have much chance at level 14 against a level 46 operative. One advice I would like to give you right now is that if you decide to follow the things I said a little bit earlier, just give it time. Perhaps you might find it uncomfortable at first, absolutely uncomfortable. Well, I'm pretty sure you will, but as you give it time and practice, you will just discover that you lived in a cave before you actually started using it. Come on, this is just laughable. I do not have a single goddamn tool. That's another point. That's a point I was making in my first video, that you should really try to level to at least 20 before actually PvPing, because seriously, at level 14 I have really no tools to fight off one-on-one if it comes to that, especially not against level 46. Well, of course, even at level 20 I doubt you will be able to fight against the level 46 operative, but well, you will have more chances, really. You'll have some defensive cooldowns, you will have more attacks. At level 14 you are weak. Yeah, you are weak. Well, we're losing this, but the point is made. The point of how to use the things I described earlier. Hopefully, nobody is actually watching past this point. Not past, but nobody's been watching up to this point, and everyone stopped when I said that you can stop. Another thing that I will talk about after this Warzone actually ends is useless keybinds. Something that you should get rid of, because you might actually and accidentally hitting them in a Warzone, thus messing up something. Like, for example, you can accidentally turn off sound, or accidentally remove targets, or accidentally swap targets. You should unbind every button that you will not be using. And I will show you as soon as this Warzone ends. There's just a couple of minutes left, so bear with this terrible gameplay. Unfortunately, my team is completely pinned in this area. Sad, but well, I didn't expect to win. I'm recording this live. There will not be any editing to this video, because I do not believe in... Well, I do believe in perfection, of course, but if I start editing this, I will never stop. I just have to do it once, have to do it live. And personally, I I, I think there is something to it, like there it's better to learn from live sessions, so to speak, when I can passionately relay information to you. Wait, how the hell did he get out of... Ah. Okay. Ow. He's level 24 and look how much more effective he is than me at level 14. Look at me quickly selecting the targets I want. I haven't missed a single target select yet. Not that it helps me much, but I'm quickly using all the skills without having to click on them with my mouse. Everything is bound to the buttons I can easily access, and of course my movement is pretty smooth. And even though I performed awfully, my damage is not so terrible. Whatever. Anyway, as soon as I exit this Warzone, I'm gonna cover the, well, they are not exactly important. They're optional topics of what you could do to even more improve your controls. First of all, it's unbinding all the unnecessary buttons that you will not be using, or moving them somewhere where you will not accidentally hit them while changing buttons, changing your fingers from button to button. Someone's inviting me to a group, but I will politely decline. Okay, so you have several chat binds which you can remove. For example, chat reply, unless you use or whisper, they're initially bound in the area around your navigation controls and your standard keybinds. You should definitely remove toggle sound, as it's very yes, I have it bound. I'm just gonna press and unbind it, and perhaps you would want to remove toggle user interface, because it's quite easy to get confused in the heat of a battle and just turn it off. There are quite a few things you can remove to prevent accidentally pressing that keybind in a war zone and confusing yourself. But of course it's up to you, it's not necessary to do this. Now I think I've covered all I wanted to for this video, and I'm pretty sure you're already tired of listening to me, but I hope you're not, because we guys who play SWTOR and trying to learn are awesome. And hopefully I'm not doing this in vain. So hopefully you've learned something new about controls and how to do it effectively. And if you haven't, and if you feel it's a little bit hard, just give it time and practice. You will get a hang of it pretty soon if you start doing it. Remove everything that you do not use, and leave only the most important stuff. Remember to bind everything that you find yourself using. Get used to targeting tools, and you'll be on your road to victory. That being said, the next episode will be about interface and how to use it effectively, because interface, controls, all of that is important to your victory in the war zones and in PvP in Star Wars, or actually every other MMO you play. This is not necessarily only Star Wars things. It may be WoW, or Lineage, or Guild Wars. All these things you might find yourself PvPing in. These advice relates directly to anything, any MMO. Okay guys, I will now go think about remaking the first video about gaining an upper hand, and this wraps it up for today. Make sure to follow myself on Facebook and Twitter at /dailypvp to stay updated on the new content I release. All the new videos get posted on the site at dailypvp.com, as well as YouTube at youtube.com/dailypvp, and I release updates on Reddit, so just in r/swtor, so you can check that. So you can check that as well if you use Reddit. And that's about it, guys. If you're learning, you're cool. Remember it. You're awesome. Thanks for watching. Flavored out.